I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. I will note that all three board members are present. For those of us that have packets in front of us, you'll see that the proof of notice is on the back of the first page. It was provided in a timely manner. We'll move first to our minutes from our October 18th, 2022 board meeting. I'll entertain a motion to accept those minutes.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. All right, moving to new business. Looks like we have two resolutions. I'll turn it over to Meg, and you can walk us through them.
So this first resolution, 3453, is for personnel changes within the Syracuse Urban Renewal Agency. If you recall, Mayor, prior to the pandemic, we were doing this semi-regularly. I'm just now catching up. These are actually from 2019, so the board can expect more. I've just been working with the Cindy Bersani to catch us up and just have the board review and approve.
So these are changes to personnel paid through the SURA payroll,
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, so any positions that have been created or abolished because maybe they were moved over to city payroll or people have left.
Okay. Assuming you don't have it handy, I think both for this and for the conversation we're going to have later, it'd be great if we could just get an update, a general update on total number of employees.
Oh, sure.
From SURA, a breakdown and maybe some historical perspective just so we can track it.
Right.
Sure, I can work with Michael and and finance, and we can get those numbers.
That'd be great.
And how many more people are being added on?
Sure. So and like I said, these are from 2019. So I'm working to work our way through those changes, and then we'll get us up to present day for the changes. But yes, I will get you those numbers.
Great. Thank you. All right. So just everyone just wants to take a minute and just scan through, make sure nothing jumps out. See some familiar names here. And so the goal would be, once we're caught up, that going forward as the changes occur, they come up on our monthly agendas, or is it something we want to do on an annual basis?
I think I would maybe do it like maybe twice a year, every 6 months. Would be the goal.
Okay.
Can I need to ask a
Please.
question? Because as long as I've been here, we've been trying to reduce the SURA payroll.
Mm-hmm.
So how long are we going to be looking to have these folks on the SURA payroll? Forever?
So, Councilors, the items that we're looking at right now are up until the beginning of 2020. So from in our budget hearings the last couple of years, these are all positions that you've already seen on the budget. This is catching SURA up with what we've presented to the council when we do the annual budget.
Okay.
And so I think to the broader question, Council President, I think we have largely gotten to the point where our goal was to make sure that people that were employed through the SURA payroll, and again, this is relevant for our next conversation, are aligned with the mission of SURA.
Right.
At one point, I think we all acknowledged prior to any of our direct involvement, it was used kind of indiscriminately as a pass-through for salaries, and so we've tried to really rein it in and make sure that it's consistent with SURA's mission, which I think we generally feel like we've gotten to that point. But per my previous request, I think it'd be nice for all of us to see it in front of us and
because most of them look like they're on NBD, so that
Right.
is
That would make sense.
the mission of SURA. So yeah, okay.
Yep. Good. All right, so I'll entertain a motion for Resolution 3453.
So moved.
How about a second? A lot of options here.
A lot of options. Okay, second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. All right, next up, Resolution 3454. Back to you, Meg.
So in 2004, SURA transferred 2 parcels, 1330 East Washington Street and 101 Foreman Avenue rear to Peace Incorporated. And as part of that, there was a redevelopment contract. And as part of that, there were certain terms and conditions that Peace had to meet. And essentially, it was to acquire the site and maintain and operate the site as necessary to accommodate their existing programs or to add new ones. And typically, after that's met, I believe the redevelopment contract gave them a year after acquisition of the property. And then they would ask for what's called a certificate of completion. Peace Incorporated is attempting to sell the property. This came up in the abstract, and there's no record of them, of a certificate of completion. That's something that would normally be recorded in the Onondaga County Clerk's office. I looked through, I have the old SURA books from 2004 and on, and actually prior to that, and I don't see where the SURA board authorized a certificate of completion, so they're asking for one at this time. I don't feel as if there's any reason not to unless the board feels differently, so that's what this request is, to just issue a certificate of completion so they can sell the properties.
Is there any way to know that they fulfilled their requirements under the contract?
Well, they acquired the site, so that we know for sure, and I think they've maintained the programs at the property. I mean, we can, if you wanted to make the approval contingent upon that, and I could, if the board was so inclined to approve, I could gather additional information from their counsel, but.
So I was looking at the map and reading and trying to listen, and I wasn't successful at doing all those things. So let me just make sure I understand. So this was a SURA-owned building or a property that was built on?
I believe there was our existing
Okay.
Structures there, 2 properties.
That we sold to Peace?
Yes.
And the sale was contingent upon the issuance of a certificate of completion?
No, so typically SURA properties had the redevelopment contract with terms and conditions that if those weren't fulfilled, a lot of times there's construction that's anticipated. In this instance, there was not construction anticipated. And they're supposed to complete it within a set amount of time, and if they don't complete that, then there's certain clawback provisions, right of revert, or different things like that, and so they would get the certificate of completion within that time period. Like I said, it was a year in this particular instance, which I think is a pretty standard provision from what I've seen from some of the old SURA contracts, and it doesn't appear that they ever requested one anytime in 2005 or on that I was able to look through. So now they need that to clear the title, essentially.
In the certificate of completion, that is something that is a SURA specific certificate?
Yeah, so you've probably heard it in terms of
Not permitting or codes,
permitting,
yeah.
exactly. So this is different in that sense. Yes, it is something that is I've seen in old SURA paperwork. We've prior SURA boards have issued them for when SURA did some other major projects in the 90s and the early 2000s. Those were typical. Since SURA doesn't really do any of that stuff, you wouldn't have seen anything over the past few years. But looking through the old SURA books, it was something that happened quite frequently, and was a typical part of a redevelopment contract. And the issuance, if those terms and conditions were complied with, was also something that was typical.
Okay. Any idea who they're selling it to?
No, they haven't informed me of that.
Okay.
So you're saying we could make the approval contingent upon confirming that they did comply with the contract?
Yeah, I mean, well, essentially this is saying, unless you want more information.
Yeah, I guess, can we, go back if it's a 12-month contingency, I mean, do the records exist from 2005 that says, yes, they operated it as Peace Incorporated, or something that they could show us that shows they complied with it?
I mean, I can go back to their council, yes, and ask if they can provide something that the board would be comfortable with.
I mean, if we're certifying that they did comply with it, I would be more comfortable if there was something that showed us they complied with it.
Okay.
So you want to make that in the form of a motion, Brad?
So I guess I'm not sure what I'm proposing. Is this contingent upon that? Are we?
Well, I guess you could do a couple different things. You could hold this item, and I could come back to you in a month with additional information.
Yeah.
Or you can make your, if you so choose, you can have the approval contingent upon additional information.
Yeah, I think I'd rather do that, have the approval contingent upon additional information that they've complied with the requirements of the contract.
Deemed satisfactory by legal counsel?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm still trying to locate the property.
Yeah, it's over by where where the buses were stored here. I just had it up on my map. Yeah, where East Washington dead ends there, you got East Water, East
Okay, because I was trying to see how Foreman backed up to it.
doesn't.
Right. That's what I was trying to see, how the rear Foreman backed up to that.
Is that what
It's
it?
the property.
Oh, Foreman Ave. not
Yeah.
Foreman.
Okay.
Right.
I believe Foreman runs across.
Let's see here. Yeah, Pine. That's a good
Is it
question.
one
Because
property
Foreman is
or two?
back
It's two separate parcels.
way.
So
Oh.
1330 East
west.
Washington.
Oh, that was 1330 East Washington, not 101 Foreman Avenue rear. Oh, I know where that is. Hold on. Let me pull
Because I
that
know
up
where Foreman is, and I know where East Washington is, and I know the Washington's spot, but I'm kind of confused
Yeah,
about
the
how Foreman
Foreman's
is.
west of it there. Yeah.
Yeah. And both of those parcels they belong to Peace?
They do, yes. And they both, SURA transferred them both at the same time as part of this project in 2004.
Because I know Foreman is that parcel that they're building those apartments on.
Right, so that's, right, so here's the Center of Excellence. Here's Foreman right here, and there's the other piece parcel here.
And that's vacant.
Well, there's the building there, but there must be a rear parcel somewhere around it,
Okay.
that's associated with it.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got a motion with a condition on it. We have a second.
I can't.
Oh, second.
Sorry.
That's on me.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'd help you if I
Opposed?
could.
Carried.
I looked at you for help.
All right, so last we have an item for discussion relative to SURA payroll. So I know we've got some of our colleagues from SPD here. Mike, I don't know if you want to provide any context or just turn it over to
Yeah,
Deputy
actually,
Chief
I'm happy
Schulsky?
to turn it over to Deputy Chief.
Great. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So I spoke with you on a power walk not too long ago. We've been trying to get a cadet program up and running to help with our recruitment efforts. We did get one up and running in August, and it had some problems. It was funded through CNY Works. With their policies, we were unable to hire anybody who was in college, even if it was just part-time. They weren't allowed to have second jobs, and just the pay rate was not livable for the individuals that we were hiring. A lot of them have families or are the sole breadwinners for their families, and they had to pull out of the cadet program because they just couldn't afford to live here on that type of payment. So we have hired 3 of them on as CSOs with the department, so we were at least able to keep them employed with the police department until we can get them on the civil service list and be eligible for hire as a police officer. but we would like to move forward with a cadet program. We attempted to go through the county to have a job description for a cadet and have that on our roster here in the city. We have been told that we can't have an age limit for the cadet job description, whatever. We also couldn't tell them or have it on there, listed on there, that they couldn't have illegal drug usage within the past 2 years. And we couldn't require them to take the police officer exam either if it was going to be a county job.
And these are all just based on civil service rules.
Correct, yep. And it would have to be a competitive job, so then we'd have to have a test, we'd have to give the test, we'd have to have Albany score them. And if we want to get this up and running in any time before I retire,
Right.
that's going to be a very lengthy process. So the next idea was to see if we could have it funded through the SURA payroll, at least the salaries.
Okay.
For how many?
Our goal would be 8 to 12. We started with 7 in August, though, because we weren't able to hit the numbers that we wanted. And it would be a 1-year program. Once that year was up, they would be off the SURA payroll, and we would find them a job, hopefully within the police department, but if that wasn't possible, then at least within the city to keep them with us. And right now, we're going through the hiring process, and OCSO is going through the hiring process, Manlius is going through the hiring process,
Right.
DeWitt is hiring, and we have a very small pool of candidates to work with. So I think the cadet program really helps us build a relationship with these individuals, so when they get 4 job offers, they
Right.
want to come work for the city.
Right.
It was also part of when we had the Department of Justice come in with CRITAC, they did a whole assessment of our recruitment, hiring, and retention programs, and that was part of their recommendation, is that we have this grow your own cadet program. So I think it's very important that we find a way to move forward with it.
Okay. So I mean, it's a perfect example where SURA does provide the flexibility that we're looking for. It's a question of whether or not we feel like it's appropriately aligned with with what SURA is intended to do. Certainly, from my perspective, for all the reasons Deputy Chief Shulsky said, this is this is a priority, and between the bureaucracy of CNY Works and County Civil Service, it's holding us back from being able to, hire city residents and hopefully bring them into the police department. So, if the board's comfortable with it, it's certainly something that I think is valuable, but open to questions, concerns.
I just want to say that it does. For me, it fits in the mission, because when you're talking about police officers in neighborhoods, that's called neighborhood development. So I'm okay with it. But I just have one question. This is for cadets, not CSOs.
Correct. We wanted to keep those cadets that we had employed here within the department, so we kept a relationship with them, because they do want to continue to move on to be police officers, and we didn't want to just send them out to find whatever job. We want to build that relationship as a CSO. Some of them actually, if we can get this up and running, want to transition back into the cadet program because they enjoyed it so much.
I think it's a great use, so I'm okay with that.
Cool. Brad, any questions or concerns?
No, I agree. I think it fits in with the mission of SURA.
Great.
I appreciate that.
Motion?
Motion?
Seconded.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
'Cause you can't-
Carried. So I don't know, we obviously didn't have a resolution in front of us, but I think hopefully that provides the formal authorization we need to let SPD proceed.
Right, and I think we'll go through the normal channels, and there's, as you know, there's a lot of approvals that are necessary to any kind of payroll change,
Yep.
whether it's SURA or the city. So, a lot of the details will come
Okay,
after. But,
great.
so we'll figure that out and work it out.
Quick question. So after that year,
Yep.
then we'll figure out how to maneuver for the next year, correct?
For the cadets that are currently in the program after the year, or for the next year of
Well,
cadets?
hopefully the cadets that's currently in the program will transition into being police officers.
Right.
And then we're
Yes,
looking at the next
hopefully they will. So the cadet program is really designed for high school students who aren't old enough to take the police exam yet, because they could graduate at 17 or 18 years old, and you can't take the exam till 19 and a half. So if they haven't reached that mark and they haven't been hired as police officers, then our goal is to find them a job within the police department, whether it be, I mean, a CSO job if it's available, information aides, anything that we can keep them employed and keep them under our roof.
But
until
we'll be
we can
looking for another funding source other than SURA, or no?
Those will just be job openings that are at the department.
Okay,
Yeah. So it won't be on the SURA payroll anymore. They'll only be on for a
Okay.
year.
okay,
And then hopefully we'll have another group of cadets the
Okay.
following year.
So to be clear, that we're not asking for SURA for funding for this.
just the
It's just to be able to have the payroll sit here, and so the next class of recruits, we would look to be able to do the same.
okay.
Good. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, any other business to come before the board? Motion to adjourn?
So move.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thanks,
Happy
everybody.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.